been a while. It's actually been out a couple of weeks, but it's always good to catch up and just go through some of those new features and how to activate them if you haven't already. So we'll step through a couple of things today, and I'll hopefully be able to give you some guidance on some of the new features that we've got available. So under the agenda today, broken down into sort of sections as we go through it, strengthening financials. We'll look at a couple of the tax setups for New Zealand and Singapore that's now out the box that's available. They were early adopter for those, but that's now fully available. And I'll show you, what we can do there, how we can set up some of those custom reporting as well, and how we activate these essentially. After that, just talk about our affiliate entity dimensions. Again, one of the early adopters that got promoted into general availability. Just talk about that. We've got our option to record customer refunds that's came in. That is at this stage still under the early adopter. So we'll just have a quick chat about that and what the options are. But we do expect that to come real soon. And then some of the integration options there. If you've got the advanced CRM integration with Salesforce, there's now options to sync payments through. And then from the financial reporting perspective, there's a bit of guidance. I'll show you, when that gets triggered, what happens there and what do we get out of it. From an industry perspective, there's a couple of insights. There is a bit on the construction. So obviously we do have Sage Construction. So there's always a few updates on those. I don't generally showcase them on these just for our customer range. But on the project side, we do have automated WIP Relief. So that work in progress is quite a nice little feature that they brought in this time. And we'll talk through what happens there, as well as a bit on the contract side. So if you use the contract module, what they've added there to just give the overview, the flexibility of what we can see on the contract module going forward. The automation capabilities, so they have enhanced again on the AP automation side, a bit more on the purchasing side. So we'll talk about what that entails and how we can get that activated. And then just on the platform, there's a few things that came into place now. There's a new import service. So we'll go through some of the options that they've added there. Obviously, the standard import is still available, but we'll talk about what this looks like, where this is going in future. And then, two of the other things, there's again, just a call out on our email domain validation. I think most of the customers would have done it already, but please try and get that sorted before the end of May. And then just on the dev side, there's a couple of things I'll touch on as well. Okay, so firstly, when we look at GST, so there's a few new options from a GST perspective. So it does support it for New Zealand and Singapore now out the box. And essentially, it's just, assisting with the reporting and making that a lot easier. So jumping into Intacct, just to go through these, we'll have a quick look at a few of them and just to see where we get that in. Always remember, we've got our release notes. You can go through them, clicking on those and check the releases. And also there's sometimes a bit of videos or some content around it, but we can assist with that process. So the first one, when we look at taxes, we can set up new tax solutions. Now, I've already set up my New Zealand one, but ideally if you set up a new one, generally we had our option to do custom ones. With the standard ones, we now also support Singapore in there. So New Zealand, Singapore, that setup is the same. So you can physically go and set these up. You can enter the particular GST accounts as you need to. And then when we want to start, so I want to start this in July, for instance, I can then go in and save this. So it'll actually create that tax solution for me. And if we go into the detail around that, you'll have the detail of what is now available. So there's all the standard, GST codes expected on the Singapore side with the applicable rates and the codes required. So that really enhanced the ability of just adding that in as a standard instead of setting up custom tax objects. Now, in addition to that, they also included, this has been around for a while. I don't know if we quite saw that yet, but you do have the ability to create your own tax reports essentially as well. So two things, with our submission of tax, you still have the ability to select Singapore, Australia, New Zealand now, or any custom ones that's available. But you can create custom tax boxes as well. So what that looks like, if we create new boxes, you can essentially decide, what goes in a particular box. So if I look at, I said it's a tax amount only on that one. So you select your tax solution, we give it an actual box ID and name, and then you decide what happens there. So, I've got just my tax amounts in there. We can actually, set negative to 0. So if there's a negative amount, put it to 0, absolute truncate round. So you can actually put that in there. And then some of the transaction types, I only want debit, credits, or both of them. So it's essentially setting up the box and then also allowing, which tax IDs we want to include. So I also want to include, some of my other taxes in there. You can select that so it'll bring through the particular details into that box. From a reporting perspective, you then have the ability to create a format. So essentially, there's a custom one that I created, and it's basically just saying, what, I want my box 1, a total for box 1, box 2, box 3. So you decide what that looks like. And ultimately, if you've got this active, you can then run a tax report on that to give you the details in that one. So, summary detail level for a particular date range and the specific custom solution that we've got. And you can run that out to actually produce those reports. So again, just a bit of enhancement on the ability to report across regions. So bringing that in and giving you the flexibility to change things on your side as well. One of the big ones that they've enhanced now around our intercompany transactions, basically. So yes, when we start looking at inter-entity transactions, those intercompany loans, are due from accounts. We essentially had, I want to say, multiple accounts, even though it's sub-accounts. We have the ability to create that. Now they've added affiliate entity dimensions. So it's a new standard dimension that will be used, and you can essentially start reporting on that. So basically looking at one receivables account, split that across the appropriate dimensions, entities that we've got there. So it will enhance that one to bring it in. And again, it's simplified entity tracking. The reporting and insight becomes a lot more flexible, and then the eliminations will also be based on that. So it can actually eliminate on as part of the process, enabling that additional dimension. Now, this is across all the modules basically. So domestic, global, and our advanced ownership consolidation does cater for this. When you do want to look at activating any of this, you can go into your subscription section, and within the multi-entity management, you can actually activate that. So I haven't done it on mine, but essentially when we bring that in, you will go into that multi-entity management and you can essentially just, activate that part of it. One of the important things just to note there, if you want to look at that affiliate entity dimension being active, we do need to look and cater for your historic transactions just to understand, we've used accounts there. We need to maybe recode a couple of those to bring in the new dimension. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, going forward, it will have everything there from a dimension point of view. But in retrospect, some of those wouldn't have the dimension. Then we need to rely on the older way of doing things. One of the exciting ones that they've added after that one is really around our customer refunds. So it's been a while. A lot of people have asked for that. They have brought it in at this stage. It is under, I want to say what they call it. It's a closed early adopter. So it is early adopter, but there's only a number of specific customers involved in testing this one. Once that's completed, the idea there is to open up to a lot more, and we can actually enhance that. So it is basically just a simplified method to manage your refunds. It is something that's paid out. We want to do a refund to the customer, so it's just recording the refund on the customer record, and that can be done across a few other transactions as well: adjustments, advances, overpayments, and negative invoices. So a few things there, also supporting multi-currency, and it just gives you that flexibility to enhance the process of what we've got on this particular one. Now, if you do utilize the Salesforce integration, one of the standard fields that they've now made available is processes, objects, is the payments. So when you receive a payment in Salesforce, that is now a standard object that can be integrated into Intacct. So that AR receipt can be generated as part of that transaction flow. So just part of the normal configuration, we include that in, and you can actually let that flow through. So it's then a complete, quote to cash workflow that can integrate from the Salesforce platform as well. I think obviously on some of the ones that we've done previously, that would have been a bespoke one that will still work, but there are options to look at the options or to activate this one going forward. From a financial report perspective, there's a bit of guidance that I added. So it's basically just some tailored recommendations on what will work better, how it'll perform better when you start adding new financial reports in there and what becomes available. So when we look at the option there, going into some of these reports, and I'll give you an idea of what it looks like. So just opening one of them, and the idea there, if we go across 12 or more columns, they might have an option or idea there for you. So if I go in and save that particular report, there's some reporting performance optimization suggestions that they'll bring out. So that gives you some idea of options that you can use to enhance the performance or the value that you get out of the reports that we've got there. Again, we can choose not to see that again and continue, or it's something that you want to continue seeing and just enhance on as we go ahead. Now, looking at some of our industry-specific ones around our WIP Relief, so that's quite a new one and quite exciting one. So looking at that automated recognition, so it's basically moving that WIP balance either to a cost of sale, expense, or asset account. So essentially, we've got this project we're busy with. Moving it to an asset at the end of the month or at the end of the project is really now an automated process, and it basically gives you the ability to match revenue and expenses. So as soon as we recognize the revenue or something, we can actually move out that expense and capitalize that as well. So a couple of features there to make this active or get it in. So firstly, when we bring it in, it is advised to have obviously a journal that we need to do. So I've just created a WIP journal there on my side, but we can create a WIP journal or a journal type or use a journal type that you feel comfortable with. Always good to identify where the transaction originates from. So create that first. And then within the project module, you'll have the ability to configure that WIP Relief. So just going down on this one, you'll see there's a new tick box there. So I want to enable that WIP Relief. We assign the journal that we created or one of the ones that we've got there. And then you can assign which work in progress account you want to look at and where do you want to take that. So once we've done the process, capitalized into a particular work in progress, we can actually take it out and take it into a WIP Relief account. So that's the setups behind it. When you start processing, obviously, before you start processing, there's a couple of things that you need in place. So from a user rights perspective, there will be a few things that you need to add in there. I've added it on my admin one. But on projects, there'll be a couple of new options there for WIP Relief. I think it was at the bottom. I can't recall now. Yep, there it is. So just bringing that in, you see there's a new section on WIP Relief. So I want to list it, I want to view it, I want to generate it or delete the process. So essentially giving you the flexibility. If you've got that active, you can go into the project and basically run that, generate the WIP Relief. And it gives you the same thing. When do we want to process it? What's the transaction date? It is processed offline. So we enter an email and select either the project, the group of projects that we want to do in that run. So you can decide what that looks like, and it'll bring through the defaults as you had there, and we can do that WIP Relief. So it'll go through, pick up the details that you want from that project up to the dates that we've put in place there, and it'll actually, move it to the appropriate area, capitalize it to an asset account or to expense it out ultimately. Now, in addition to that, on our industry specifics, we've also added a couple of things just around the contract summary tab. So it's just to give you, a bit more visibility and insights at a glance around the contracts and where we are. So ultimately, when we look at contracts, you'll have some visibility of, what that looks like in total. Now, just going into my contracts module, I'll give you a quick overview of what that looks like. So I'll open up one of my contracts, just include all of them. And I might have one that's got some detail on. So I'll open up one of those contracts, and the new tab will essentially give you that summary. So you can see the financial insights as to what has happened. So on my contract summary now, it's similar to what you've got in projects, but you can see everything that's been invoiced, received, and outstanding. But then in each of the sections, you can see, all of the transactions that's related to contract invoice transaction history. So there's all my invoices generated. I can see what the payment status is. So the invoice is closed, but the payment is still outstanding when it was created. And I can also, if there's any other transactions related to this from order entry, ARPO, the projects module, all of that detail now visible on one screen. So it just gives you, like I said, that visibility, the insights into the contracts and to what's available that we've got there. Maybe just to mention, obviously from a construction point of view, there's a few enhancements on the construction side. They also included, and we're still sort of investigating that, they have revamped the inbuilt fixed asset module within Intacct. So there is a SFAM, so it's a financial asset management within Intacct again. We are looking and assessing that, but it is an option going forward, which basically gives you the ability to utilize the fixed asset as a dimension as well. So just enhancing that, dimensional capabilities of the application, looking at the asset module there as well. So we'll look at that one at a later point. We'll showcase a bit more on that, but you'll see some notes within the release cycles around the fixed assets and the enhancements that they're bringing into it, and that's what it's referring to. When we look at the next section, there is just on AP automation, a few things that they've added there. So it's essentially just expanding on what we've already got. So just a recap, we introduced the normal AP automation within Intacct that gives you the flexibility to start identifying, reading, PDFs, emails coming in, uploads that we're doing, so it can create the document for you on the AP side. They then introduced the purchase invoice side as well. So, getting that related or a document in related to purchase orders, so we can actually scan it in, upload it, email it in. It'll read the document, it'll create the invoice, and it can then look up the matching of a purchase order or receipt and create that invoice against that matched transaction. This new section that they bring in is creating a purchase document without or a non-matching transaction, essentially. So it's getting to the point where you can still have both streams available. So there would be matched purchase invoices coming in and then non-matched ones. So it just gives you that flexibility where it comes in, it's non-matched, it doesn't know where to take it, which location, which dimension. And again, from our coding perspective, the same as on the AP side, you can start teaching the system basically. So you tell it where to go, and going forward after a couple of goes, it'll start, realizing where to go and then updating the new documents coming in to the correct areas when we bring that in. So exciting stuff, always enhancing a bit on what we bring on the AP automation side. And again, there's a bit of AI enhancements in there as well, where we, realize where it needs to go to, or start learning where it needs to go to, and then start predicting where things should happen. On the platform side, a couple of things there just to note. So there is a new import service available, and it gives you, you'll have some visibility. Obviously, I think some of you would have utilized the import. That will still be available. You'll still be able to bring in normal imports, especially around transactional information. The new service is released purely around dimensions, essentially on the first go. But it is the test phase in a sense as to this is the new feature, this is where we're going. And the idea there is we can bring in, there's a lot more capabilities coming in. There's, multiple tabs that you can import. We can bring in formulas, extra columns, formatted numbers. So the idea behind it is it's got real-time error handling. So it wouldn't have that current process email coming out to you to say these are the errors that were reported. So it's real-time error handling. You can do some intuitive interface as well, where we do have bulk find and replace and options to do there. So quite a nice little feature. And maybe just to quickly touch on that, when we open up the new import service, this is what it'll look like. So you'll see there's a bit of a welcome. There's the workbooks that we've got available. As we mentioned, it is around the dimensions that we've got currently. And essentially, there's a few read-ups that you can do. And just to showcase, we can load and map your file. So I'll show you what that looks like. We can bring that in, where to go. We can map a few things. And then from a data validation point of view, again, on the tabs, it can validate the data before things are happening. So it gives you that assurance that what we're bringing in is actually correct and validated before we start the import. But also then on that screen, you've got the ability to modify or change that. So if I go into one, I'm going to create a new GL account, for instance. So on this, you've got the ability to basically just drag and drop a file in there. And you can see I've got different options there for create and update. But essentially, it brings it in and then goes through the interface. So I can do a mapping to say, these are my mapped fields, or these are the fields I find in the file. Where do I want to actually map that? Do we want to bring everything through? And you've got that ability to just view, what that field is and what it's used for. So quite a nice way just to ensure that you don't have to actually create this in a specific format. We can have a format that you choose, and you can map the appropriate fields to the values on the Intacct side as required. So I'll continue through that, and we'll see, once it's mapped, there's also a couple of things that we can update. So, there's incoming values. I've mapped it to balance sheet account. It's a normal balance debit, and I can actually override this as well. So I can set up, if I just import my balance sheet, I can set all the accounts to a particular type there and bring that in. So a few options there that's bringing in. And then as you can see, as I sort of tab through there, it does a bit of validation, checking the file, confirming the mapping that we've got there, and then also looking at the data that's brought in. Does this actually correlate to the area that we need? Does it actually pass the validation process? And we can see, yep, we've got everything in there. It's all valid. This is where we can start, filtering, updating, and changing things as well. We validate if we've made any changes. So, if I change things there, you can do that, but ultimately I can also just import there. So it's that online availability, it's immediate effect. We know what happens when, and you can see that process running through, and there's the result. It's done completely, and I can actually continue the process, bringing in additional files or going to different sections there from an import perspective. So, excuse me, that's the initial part of the new import service. Obviously, as I mentioned, if we exit out of there, we still have the full couple of options there as to what we do afterwards. So there's the new import service. It's an import workspace. We still have the the native import options available, and that will be there for a while until everything is moved across to that new import service. So something to look forward to from an importing perspective as well. Just stepping back on this side, I spoke about the email validation before. Please just validate that. It's just, there's a couple of expanded capabilities around there, real-time error handling. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one there. But it's around security and reliability. We need to get that validated and, improve deliverability. So that's the important one. We want to ensure that emails get delivered and not quarantined. So make sure we register that by the end of May, please. The next one, we spoke about a couple of things on an enhanced list. So I think there's almost 105 lists now out already. So it's all around advanced filtering capabilities, seamless navigation that we look around, and then that efficient record management. So, a lot more things that we can do on that enhanced list. I think in a lot of areas that'll be on by default. There's some options to still switch back to the older way of looking at things. Probably a good time to start getting used to that, getting into grips with the new enhanced list and getting across that. That will be pushed out as we go forward and enhanced across all areas as well. When we look at a bit more around I want to say the dev side, the technical side, there's a few things there looking at event queue trigger. So a few things coming out from queues that we can do. So, there's flexible event retrieval. So once we start getting that in, we can actually view what's been requested. It's configurable triggers as well, and then it's all about the reliability around that as well. And I mentioned the tracking there at the end. So that's one that came out. The other one that I didn't actually prepare a slide for that I just want to mention, there is on the REST API that they released, they did have the bulk transaction option now available. So there are options there where it's not, the one at a time call through the API. We've got the bulk feature that we've got now available from the REST API. So that's been released and available to start checking and testing. So that's probably the initial bit that I wanted to touch on. I did include a little bit around one of our marketplace partners as part of this release as well. Obviously, there's a few other bits and bobs that were updated. Please have a read around release notes. But just the next section I wanted to touch on, one of our marketplace partners is an enhancement around reporting. So we thought just to showcase this a little bit with a couple of things just to leave with you. Now, Velixo it's a augmented Excel tool. So it's basically an integration. It's a real-time integration through the API that allows for reporting and a couple of other things. So they've got a number of out-the-box templates that's available. So once you've actually downloaded and installed the connection through the Excel add-in, you've got access to that. So it doesn't have a data warehouse. It's real time. It basically, you open up that report, it refreshes, and you can start viewing, preparing the data like that. So there's no IT dependency on this, and the distribution is also a lot easier because it's all Excel-based functions and features that you've got available. Generally, it's not available it's not suitable for everyone, but if you want to have a look at that, please let me know. I can take you through that. It does have a bit of bi-directional integration as well. So especially, obviously, the first part is, yes, it's got the reporting features in there, but looking at your budgets, you can do forecasting there, write that back to Intacct as well. So you've got some availability there as we can do. The master data section, there will be some updates on that. I think on the Intacct side, it's probably not there yet, but it is coming if it's not there. But a lot of options there from a reporting perspective, and then from a write back perspective as well, once we get those things going. The benefits around it, it's really about, decisions being made faster. It reduces your labor cost in a sense, because you don't have to create those reports on the other side. It's a template that you can utilize, create it on Excel-based formulas, and basically just report on that. And it's becoming more efficient the more we go.